95% of what goes into a recycling facility doesn't get recycled. 10% typically gets incinerated, 85% goes to landfill because it's very difficult.
So how do you even approach the problem? Exactly.
Well, the problem is this. So this plastic and this plastic are different types of plastic. They're made from different reactions, right? So you can't recycle these both at the same time. And even if you have 1,000 of these and one of these gets into the batch, it's all gone, it's all ruined. And even the little ring.
No way.
The little ring.
Yeah, they started a campaign.
So they just give up? Then it's just a facade?
It's exponentially easier to throw it out and cheaper than it is to recycle. It's much cheaper to make virgin plastics than it is to recycle.
Our potential, it's exponential.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Abundant Souls, and I have an amazing episode today for you guys. I have Jonathon and Gozde. Welcome to the episode. Thanks for coming.
Well, Jack, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here and have the opportunity to tell the story about how we got here and our plans for what we intend on doing for this world, because we think people are going to like what we have to say.
Yeah, let's get into it, guys. So you have a technology that you're bringing to the world. Tell us about it. The ultimate solution for waste and pollution. Did I get that right?
You got it right. Yeah. So it's a process that was originally invented by my father about 25 years ago. And we spent a long time going through many trials and tribulations, ups and downs, highs and lows, and various forms of this process, right? And that's all it is. It's a process. It's already standard industry practices that my father figured out how to put in the correct sequence to emulate and mimic the Earth's natural hydro and geothermal processes to turn all carbon-based waste back into their smaller chain carbons, which are hydrocarbon fuels, biochar, and various forms of useful energy.
And so you sell those products from the waste. So you take waste. You were talking about that oil and tires and stuff, and then you turn it into like actual products like soil building amendments and stuff?
There's two soil building amendments, right? But we can get into those. One is a biochar, which actually has a couple different uses, which we'll get into. And we also make a liquid fertilizer concentrate, which is loaded with ammonium nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, all these great micronutrients that support plant life and growth. And there's no waste byproducts. Our only byproduct is a gray water stream.
Interesting.
So what we're able.
How do you do that? It's proprietary.
Oh, yes and no. There's enough that we can share.
I'm curious, right?
So basically,
how is it safe? All those things.
So everything, and you're a farmer. Pretty much everything is carbon, right? Almost everything above the Earth's surface is carbon. Life. The carbon is the element of life, right? And all that is, if we go back to high school chemistry or high school biology class, think of sugar, C6H12O6, right? 6 carbons, 12 hydrogens, 6 oxygens. Well, if we took sugar and we processed it in our equipment, you would cleave off those oxygens and you would actually just make the straight chain carbons, right? And not only that, but we're able to actually save all that carbon. So when you think of a waste disposal method like incineration.
Right.
Incineration definitely makes energy from waste. Is it a good way? That's debatable. I mean, if you look at a country like Singapore, who has scrubbers on their plants, the air that comes out after burning their trash is actually cleaner than the air around the facility. But those are insanely expensive technologies to filter that air.
In Singapore.
Yeah.
God.
But incineration destroys carbon, right? You combust it. So it's the end of the life. You destroy the carbon.
You just use it up.
We just take it and we just put it back into the loop. So carbon, we make 4 main products, right? We make a regenerative fuel oil, which is a sweet crude. It's carbon neutral, clean burning, no mercury, no VOCs, no volatile compounds. It's truly a clean burning fuel, which can be distilled into gasoline, diesel, kerosene, and the kerosene can be upgraded into jet fuel. I've done the experiments turning our kerosene into JP4 and JP5 grade jet fuels. We create a renewable or regenerative natural gas, which is a mixed fuel gas. It contains propane, hexane, butane, all the good natural gases. And then we have the biochar, which changes in composition depending on what you're feeding the system, but we'll get into that.
Right.
And then our liquid fertilizer,
Okay.
and then the only byproduct is water. So let's say you're in an arid climate, right? You're in Arizona, and we know Arizona is a tough growing condition, right? I've studied permaculture to a long degree, and some of your guests you've had on have been from Food Forest Abundance, and we're actually
Heck
blessed
yeah.
to say we're founding partners of that amazing organization.
Shout outs. Yeah. Cameron put us in touch. He was on
Yeah,
the podcast.
Cameron that's a special human being. That is a special human
Yeah,
being.
he's
I
good
mean,
people.
when I saw him and just put my arms around him for the first time, it felt like I was hugging a brother that I've known my whole life. So it truly has been great. But let's
We're
say
on a
you're in
mission,
Arizona,
brother. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you have all this waste, and waste has moisture content, right? Everything has water in it. That waste sits in a landfill, and that water goes to waste, right? But now we can capture that water and just take it out of the system, and now we can use it again, right? So we're a water positive technology, and in my eyes, because of carbon neutrality, the way you have to look at it from my perspective and the way I've studied it, we're actually a carbon negative company. So we actually not only create carbon neutral fuels, but we create carbon that you put back in the soil. So it's the ultimate way, in my eyes, of sequestering carbon, because we're putting fertilizers back into the soil, which the soil's now storing that carbon,
Yeah.
and then the fuels we're
the
making
soils
are
are-
carbon neutral.
Amazing, man. And the soils are depleted, man. We need solutions like this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So tell us more about it. I think I have so many questions. The first is the gray water system. I think my audience is curious about that
Sure.
too. But also, like, brother, this is amazing. It's an energy, you're an energy company, I guess, right?
Well, we're an equipment manufacturer, right?
Got
So we're building the equipment that waste producers can now take, and they can use this equipment at their facility. So let's use a slaughterhouse, for example, right? You have a big slaughterhouse slaughtering, let's say use pork, right? They're slaughtering 20,000 300-pound pigs a day. They're producing a lot of waste. And I've visited facilities of that size
Yes.
before, right? They're producing probably 20 to 50 tons of waste a day at minimum.
Got it.
Right?
Like one of these factory farms.
Yeah. So now they're coming in, and all that waste is now being shipped out. Trucks coming in, spending all those fuels, burning all those fuels, taking it out to one facility, going to facility B, getting processed at facility B, getting sent to facility C, then going to facility D. Oop.
Yeah.
It's just a long chain
With the material.
with the waste.
Yeah.
Not even the good material, the waste.
The waste. Yeah.
Now that same facility can purchase our equipment and power their facility from their waste while making the fertilizers that they can now have a new product they can market
Wow.
from their waste.
And use the water to feed.
Yeah, the water, so a facility like that probably wouldn't try to utilize the water. They would probably just discharge it to a city. If they had a use for it, they definitely could. Maybe they're irrigating a field or whatever. But this gray water will meet all COD and BOD requirements for city discharge. There's no pathogens. The technology, actually, my father, his company, has seen 100% pathogen destruction and actually has a medical infectious waste permit in New York. We're not affiliated with my father or his company, but the technology is an advanced form of what they've used. Me and my team have really developed it a lot further than where it originally was. So it's the only technology to ever receive 100% pathogen destruction on medical infectious waste. Incineration's about 99.8% effective, and the way you can explain that is think of a fire. You always have that one little brick of charred wood that's left over. They're cold spots, right? And pathogens can survive those cold spots. But because we use water in our process, the water gets into all the interstices, and under heat and pressure, you're able to destroy those pathogens. So we neutralize all toxins, all wastes. And there's even some more tricks in there that we'll get into here in a little bit.
No, this is good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So businesses can buy this from you, and you're basically manufacturing and taking care of it. They probably get credits for this too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. That's insane.
So we still have to build these portable modular units. I've been a part of teams building this technology at 15 tons per day and 250 tons per day. And I was a lead engineer
of waste material.
Of waste material.
Wow.
And then I was a lead engineer on a 1,500 ton per day facility that unfortunately never got built because where we were, the country fell apart, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But we've had to overcome some major hurdles.
Got it. And I want to, if you don't mind, like we should get into how you got here too. Like I'm sure people are interested. You got into it a little bit with me.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into that or talk more about the tech?
I mean, we kind of gave a little general overview so people understand where the conversation is leading. So I guess we could go back to the beginning because I think that's
cool, man.
When we talk about
energy solutions in the house, guys.
When we talk about our mission, and sorry for you're still getting used to the whole interview. So
dude,
if I cut you off, I apologize.
We cut each other off. It's all good.
So our mission and vision at Eden Energy is we want to restore Eden to the world, right? We want to have a world powered by waste. And we are beyond blessed because the core group that we've established, not a single person in our team has a greedy bone in their body, and everybody just wants to do good for humanity. And
that's where it's at, man. Companies like that, where it's not just about making the dollar and selling one day. You want an actual world. You want to create Eden on Earth.
We want to create Eden on Earth. And the name Eden Energy, we'll get into how that came about. It was a hero's journey. I'm sure some people are going to be interested to hear that story, your listeners, but we'll get into that.
Dude, I think about this stuff all the time, man. We're very aligned. This is cool. So what got you on this path, brother?
So
and Eden, whatever, the name.
So it's a little bit of a story. So, and I know we got some time, so I think it's good to give the listeners the real overview so they can understand who we are and where we're coming from. But to really tell this story, you got to tell it properly from the real beginning, and it starts before I was born. So my father came from very humble beginnings, was pretty poor growing up, and was a basketball player, and that was the only reason why he went to college. Right out of school, got a job working for Russell Stover's, and my dad was a good basketball player. He actually had letters from the Nets and Sixers saying they were going to draft him, but he busted his ankle up pretty bad his senior year, and thankfully he lost his edge, because if he didn't, we never would have been down this path, right? Everything happens for a reason. God put you on the path that you need to go down, right?
Totally. He was an athlete, though.
He's a 6'5" point guard that can shoot. He averaged, in high school, he averaged 30 points a game without a three-point line.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, so he was a baller, and he still is. I mean, my old man's a pretty cool dude.
Cool.
Right out of school, he ended up on a plane. Won Salesman of the Year for Russell Stover's Candies in 1980 or 81, one of those. Was on a plane, got sit next to Joe Niederlander from Niederlander Broadway Theaters. And at the time, they were just starting a company that everybody today knows as Ticketmaster. But my father was the founding EVP of Ticket World, which became Ticketmaster. And in 85, some Wall Street guys came in and went to buy the company. And my dad's an old hippie. And he said, you know what, I really don't have an interest in working for these guys. I'm just going to sell out and go see what I want to do with my life. And
love it.
Him and my mom were in Chichen Itza.
Ticketmasters.
Yeah, in Ticketmaster, yeah.
So he went to wait. So he went to Mexico. So now he goes to Mexico.
So he sells all his shares, and I mean, I'm sure you can imagine, 85, a 26-year-old kid who grew up poor, now has got a pretty big windfall and is enjoying his life. And him and my mom are going around doing soul searching. I mean, and they were big time scuba divers. For their honeymoon, they were in the Cayman Islands, and they were. I forget the guy's name, but it was Jacques Cousteau's first mate, and he was recovering from like an open heart surgery, and they got to spend a week with him diving the Cayman Islands. So they were traveling, they were having some fun.
Yeah.
And
they cashed out and they went to Mexico.
Yep. And so they ended up in Chichen Itza during the spring equinox. And for anybody who knows Chichen Itza, it's one of the biggest Mayan temples that they've really excavated. And if you ask me, I mean, you look at what's going on and these discoveries happening down south. The Mayan culture was so much bigger than what we actually know. I mean, they're finding cities that are just thousands of miles in diameter. I mean, it's a joke how big these places are.
We could talk about a whole episode on that.
Oh, for sure.
There's so many pyramids.
So many. Wow. I mean, there's estimates that they are now thinking the Mayan population was in the millions, maybe even tens of millions. And it was an amazing civilization. But
So much history lost.
yeah, but Chichen Itza is an amazingly structured temple, right? It's aligned perfectly with the spring and spring and winter or spring and fall equinoxes, right?
Yeah, doesn't the sun line up every
The sun
spring
lines
equinox?
up, and Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, basically the almighty god of the Maya, he crawls down, symbolizing the rebirth, right? The renewal of the year. And if you look at a lot of these ancient cultures, they all said spring was the start of the new year, not December.
Interesting.
And that's something that I think the Gregorian calendar really got into. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are like, oh, now he's on to something, right?
We got a gem here today.
So
Let's go.
So they're there, and he obviously did pretty well, but it's pouring rain. And he paid this little Mayan girl to give him a little private tour. And the Mayan girl is going around and turns to my father and goes, sir, we need to go back to the temple. It's time for the ceremony. And my father's 26, star athlete. He's like, oh, it's raining. We're not going to see anything. So she goes, and this is a line that changed my father's life. And I've heard this line more times than I ever care to admit.
Even
But she
I
said-
heard it so many times.
Yeah.
But she said to him, no, sir, you don't understand the power of the Maya. So they go back to the temple. And now, if this part is true, if it's not true, that's not for me to say. That's my father's
Yeah.
story.
You
But
weren't even born yet.
I was still a dream. It was 4 years later that I was can't walk this world. But he says there was a huge crack of thunder. The sky opened. Kukulkan crawled down the temple. Sky closed back up, and it started raining again.
What?
So at that moment, he had a spiritual awakening like you can never imagine. He actually considers himself Mayan at this point. He's got this necklace that has its own unbelievable story in and of itself, but it's a boar tooth with Kukulkan carved into it. He's read the Pupavul, which is the Mayan Bible, several times. He can read the hieroglyphics. We have family that lives in Tulum that are just the most amazing people. So they live actually a little north of Tulum.
That's amazing.
Next time you go, if you're looking for either a great restaurant or a great tour, my Mitia, Virginia, and mi Tio, Oscar, they run a tour group called Riviera Aventures, and there's a restaurant called Oscar y Lalo. It's built into the jungle. My father got all these beautiful 3 by 4 foot Mayan carvings of all the Mayan calendar from this Mayan artist. He had these stones carved from Palenque, which is one of the holy places of the Maya culture. And the restaurant is lined with all these carvings of all the gods. I mean, it's a magnificent restaurant, and the food it's a joke.
Dude, the food's so good.
The food's a joke.
It's so good there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the jungle.
Yeah,
Cool.
so that got a little sidetracked
Yeah,
there.
but,
But,
right in Tulum. Yeah.
So my father has this massive spiritual awakening. He comes back and he starts an import-export company and makes some really interesting connections, meets some really interesting people, 3-letter agency guys and whatnot. And fast forward, they do amazing business. My dad does very well for himself. And then the mid 90s, around 95, actually someone who he was in business with, who ended up becoming my godfather, did a really dirty deal behind his back, or bad deal behind his back, and cut him out of a lot of money. And it was time for my father to think about really what he wants to do, and if he wanted to continue doing import-export.
Yeah,
so
he screwed him.
Yeah, so we had been going back and forth to Mexico a lot. My father, it was home for him, and that's a whole nother animal. I mean, cool stories there, and we can get into that another day. But we decided to go there as a family in '96, and
We're not even gonna get to Gozde. This is like 20.
Just gonna go.
This is good.
we're still
No,
No,
this is
it's
great.
fine because he has all the stories.
we're still almost 30 years back, right? We're still trying to get up to where we are now. But we see this Mayan shaman, and the Mayan shaman is talking to my father, and one of the things he said, he like pointed at his knees and pointed down and said, my father still has that much evil left in him that he needs to learn how to expunge. But one of the things he also said was he's going to create something that's going to save the world or clean the world. I can't remember the exact word. And at the time, we didn't really understand what it meant. But one of my father's partners and someone who helped us with this company was a former CIA director. And he helped my father get involved in this energy conference, and he met a few interesting people who had some really cool ideas for technologies. And one of them was actually kind of a base foundational for what we're doing today. But my father looked at them and he said, you know, they work. And don't get me wrong, there's tons of technologies out there that can turn waste into fuel.
Right.
But the question is, A, are they energy efficient? Is the most important in my eyes.
Yeah.
And B, do they create good products?
Yeah.
Right? Pyrolysis has been around for 50 years, 60 years. I mean, in fact, a crazy coincidence, my uncle helped actually build one of the first pyrolysis systems here in the U.S.
Wow, that's cool.
But it's a technology that is energy inefficient, and the products are terrible because you don't clean the waste before you make the fuel. So all the mercury, the sulfur, all those harmful compounds that were in the waste are now in your fuel, and then you burn the fuel, and it's in the atmosphere, right?
Facts. Yeah.
So he
was looking at it, these texts, and picking them apart, you're saying.
And he's just saying, and he's not a scientist. My father got, I guess, a liberal arts degree. I mean, he was a basketball player, right?
You're right.
He thought he was going to the NBA.
You're right.
But my father is one of the most ferocious readers you will ever meet in your life. You don't see that guy with at least 2 to 3 books in his briefcase, and he's reading all of them at the same time. I mean, he just doesn't stop.
Interesting.
In my eyes, there's only one scientist.
I want to meet this dude.
I'm sure one day you will, but there's only one scientist in my eyes that probably eclipse him in the study of understanding, and that's my father's mentor, which we're not going to get into today. But my father is, in my eyes, one of the smartest people maybe on the planet right now.
That's amazing.
He's brilliant.
And you're walking in his footsteps, man, with Eden Energy Solutions.
I'm trying to make him proud.
Yeah.
He gave me a childhood that was interesting, and we'll talk about that. But he starts developing. He starts looking at it. He starts trying to understand how Mother Nature does it, and it's simple: heat, pressure, time, and water. And he was like, "Oh, well, there's a lot of technologies out there that do similar processes. What if we started stacking them?" And over the course of 25 years and a lot of funds, what we have today was born. And I was blessed early on. I mean, obviously my father was very successful, and people will look at me and say, "Oh, he's a silver spoon brat." But growing up,
tell him.
Well, growing up, I mean, and not to say this in a vulgar way, but my mother's Jewish. My father's an Irish Catholic, so I came from a mixed denominational home.
Very cool.
But
my mother's Jewish and my dad's, not Christian, not Catholic, Christian.
Yeah. But tomato, right?
And my mom's from Long Island, by the way.
All right. Yeah, that's awesome. Whereabouts?
Yeah. Great Neck.
Okay. One of my rivals in basketball.
Yeah, I love it.
So that's awesome.
I grew up down here, but just thought that was a cool alignment. Yeah.
No, I grew up on West Hempstead on Long Island. Yeah. Shout out to Hall's Pond.
Yeah.
But
so people would say, "Yo, it was just given to you." I cut you off.
Yeah. So a lot of people would sit there and say this was given to me, but my parents, I mean, we didn't have an allowance as kids. Obviously, if we needed something, we got it, but my mother wouldn't buy me new shoes every week. I mean, my clothes most of the time were hand-me-downs from my brother. I mean, and we were a family of means. My mother was just very frugal, and she still is. I mean, my mother's one of the most frugal people I've ever met, one of the hardest working entrepreneurs you'll ever meet. She owns her own gift store on Long Island.
She's a real Jewish woman.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But my father also had since he grew up poor, I mean, my grandfather, his father was a drywaller. So my father knew how to do things. And growing up, my friends would be watching cartoons on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and 8 a.m., knock on my door, "John, wake up, it's time to work in the garden." We would get up and we would do gardening, and he's got probably about an acre and a half in a suburb where most people don't even have a quarter of an acre.
Amazing.
And he's owned the property since '86, and they hasn't put a poison on the property ever.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it's
surrounded by New York City.
Yeah, basically.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So he's got this little oasis in the middle of nowhere, but I grew up learning how to build things. I mean, so I carved out a nice chunk of his basement when I was living in Turkey for a while. We were trying to build one of our businesses, and I wasn't going to rent a place where I was only going to be in for a month or two. So I told him, I'm like, "Look, you have a huge basement. I'm going to carve out a chunk, and I'm going to make myself my own apartment because there's his own entrance and everything." And I mean, him, and my uncle, his younger brother, spent the summer building this apartment. And I mean, if you walked into it, it was gorgeous. I mean, it was brand new, like wood trim everywhere. I mean, really professionally done. And I'm blessed to say that I did the electrical, I did the plumbing, I did the drywalling. I mean, I learned how to do all these as a kid. And
Man, a lot of people don't know how to do that, especially from where we grew up. We grew up.
100%.
Yeah. So
I
it
can
gives
put
you.
together IKEA desk. That's all I can do.
So where do you come in the equation? You're a founder too, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a founder too.
Yep.
We met in Turkey when he was working in a similar technology.
Well, yeah, my father's company, one of the iterations of my father's company.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was reiterating for 25 years.
Yep.
So you met in Turkey.
Yes, he had been living
Amazing.
there for, I guess, 3 years when we met. And then
Where in Turkey?
Istanbul. That's where
Okay.
I grew up, born and raised
Amazing.
there. Yeah. And then back then he was telling me all about the technology, and I'm like, okay, I guess because of the language barrier, I am not sure. I'm like, oh, that's very cool. I was listening to him like a grandma would look at their grandkids' homework. I'm like, ooh, yeah, like
Sure.
very nice. Even though I was very good at chemistry at school, I was looking at things, but I'm like book smart. But
It's dense.
yes,
Yeah.
and then I came to the U.S. and I saw the actual machine, and he ran it for me once to show it to someone else. Actually, I'm like, wow, okay, that's like
Very
that's
cool.
what
Yeah.
it's doing. And then that's why I think for a lot of people, they need to see how the technology is
it.
working and in practical life. And you actually put garbage in there, and oil came out, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's amazing.
And thank you for saying that, because yeah, we could talk about like the background and all of it too,
Yeah.
but it's like really, and that's what I love about this podcast. We could tell people about this. Like,
Yeah.
you're sharing this beautiful, amazing technology that exists,
Yeah.
you know, to the world, and like we could share it with people, but it really happens outside of this room.
100%.
Yeah,
Throwing
exactly.
it in the machine and showing people, and
So I
Yeah,
had this blessed
beautiful.
childhood, and
beautiful.
especially in the early 2000s, my father's company was doing great. I mean, they were featured on Discover magazine a few times. They were 2003. They won one of Scientific America's 50 most influential companies. So I grew up in this area where my father always instilled work ethic in me. I mean, both of my parents worked morning, noon, and night, 6-7 days a week, and seeing that and learning from them, and
It's in you.
it's in me. I mean,
yeah.
I was telling Alexis, your camera woman, that I haven't taken more than a day off in 3 years. I mean, I haven't had more than back-to-back days off where I didn't work for several hours in more than 3 years.
Respect.
So it's been a grind,
Yeah.
and, but there's great things.
How do you stay balanced?
You know,
You don't. First,
That's a
ask,
great
are you
answer.
balanced?
That's a great answer.
well,
Yeah, right.
gonna,
No,
though,
that's
we're
the
gonna.
truth, though. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we caught up for like a good like almost hour yesterday, 30 minutes,
Yep.
and you carve it out, but like we were working to that point. Like
Yeah.
you could tell, like
Yeah.
I'm in that same boat.
yeah.
Where
So-
my parents, I see my dad get up at 3 or whatever every day.
I'm a
like-
4:45 guy. I'm up by 4:45 most mornings.
That's lit.
So,
See,
but
I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not.
but
Yeah.
when
It's too early.
Yeah, it's
4:45
early.
is early.
But doing this, I mean, like
Yeah.
the perfect example is just energy comes to me. It's vibrational frequencies, and it just comes to me. And a perfect example was we moved our equipment to our new facility in Austin, and it was up at my father's in New York. And some of my team members drove up, and then 4 of us got in a big 2500 Dodge and towed all of our stuff down on a 25-foot trailer, or 24-foot trailer. But we first night we drove and we made it to, I guess, Nashville or Knoxville, one of the cities in Tennessee. I can't remember exactly which one. But then we had 13 hours the next day to get back to where our new facility is in Leander, Texas.
In Texas, yeah.
In Texas.
Cool.
We pull into the facility at about 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. We left the hotel real early in Tennessee. And the second we got there, we were all exhausted. But, hey, let's get the equipment off and fire it up. So we pulled the equipment off the truck. We fired it up. We were out there till 3 in the morning, just hanging out, making fuel from the. I mean, I just said to them, give me whatever you want me to throw in, and we put in dog food. I mean, we put in a whole egg, and we were just throwing stuff in there, saying, all right, I said to them, what do you want to see run? Because
Plastic,
the equipment,
a lot of plastic, water bottles.
So we should talk about, that's hilarious, by the way.
yeah. But it's the whole energy. For me, knowing that I have a mission to heal this world, I don't get tired. I'm just able to keep going forward.
Dude, I can relate, brother, because I go hard too. I was farming all morning, and like I'm here, no coffee today. Like let's get it.
See, I don't know if I could do that. I'm a coffee connoisseur.
Me too, brother. But I'm trying to, we wean, we have, But brother, I don't want to lose track. This is so good.
Yeah,
this is so good. I want to talk about that exactly. You said plastic. You throw plastic in there. A lot of my audience, they literally. I get texts and DMs from people, and they're like, "Yo, talk about not using the plastic," or like they value that.
Yeah.
Like there's so much pollution, and I know so many people out there are like really like feel like they have no control, like overwhelmed with all the trash. Yeah. Like, and then they get depressed. Like literally, it's a thing. We were talking about it. Like, how do you tell people about this amazing technology? Because that's insane. Like how can we start to alleviate that, I guess, pain, and just realize that we could, like, our problem in permaculture, right? Out of this event, we went this. They talk about how the problem can be the solution. Yeah. Like, talk about exactly like how we could use plastics, and maybe not just continue the waste we're doing, because we don't want to keep using plastics, as much as we can. But like, how do you use this machine? Talk about it a little bit. That was a long question to that, but I hope that framed it well.
You set me up perfectly. So
yes,
to understand to create a solution. To create a solution, you really have to know what the problem is. And when we think of plastics, and people are like, "Oh, I'm recycling," and I say to them, "Well, do you know what recycling really is? 95% of what goes into a recycling facility doesn't get recycled. 10% typically gets incinerated. 85% goes to landfill, because it's very difficult."
So how do you even approach the problem? Exactly.
Well, the problem is this. So this plastic and this plastic are different types of plastic. They're made from different reactions, right? The bottle's made from condensation CO2 reactions, where the top is more of an HDPE, so it's a solid oil, right? This contains a lot of carbon dioxide, and this contains more oil, right? So you can't recycle these both at the same time. And even if you have 1,000 of these, and one of these gets into the batch, it's all gone. It's all ruined.
That part.
Oh my!
And even the little ring.
There.
No way.
The little ring.
Yeah, they started a campaign.
So they just give up? Then it's just a facade?
It's exponentially easier to throw it out, and cheaper than it is to recycle it. It's much cheaper to make virgin plastics than it is to recycle.
Got it. So you're saying there's no incentive for them to even do it?
Zero.
So the incentive for you is, okay, we can make products, we could get carbon, like we could help turn the world around.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and PVC is another big plastic. Those are your white pipes that everybody uses for their plumbing, right? Polyvinyl chloride. So they have chlorides in them, which when you burn or combust them is extremely harmful, right? It causes all sorts of issues.
The PVC pipes.
Yeah, and pretty much nobody can really process PVC. But because of the robustness of the technology, it doesn't care what you put in it, right? As long as the equipment is made to handle whatever the conditions are that are going to be a result of the material you're operating, right? So, I mean, you can put PVC in with PET, with HDPE, in with used motor oil, in with hamburger waste, and everything all at the same time. What? And the only thing you have to do is you have to get the particle size down enough. So you just got to shred or grind it so we can actually just get it into the system. Because heat, pressure, and time don't care about what you're made out of, because you're a carbon chain, and we're just going to break you down anyway.
You're a mad scientist, aren't you?
Oh, I've done a few experiments in my day. I
feel like I'm going to go. That's incredible, man. You're going to go to I'm going to show up to the facility. It's going to be like Willy Wonka's, like I'm going to start floating and stuff.
His hair is like wild.
But seriously,
I make a combustible material. We light things on fire.
Sometimes he would come home with a black face. I'm like, what happened? But I don't want to know. Just go get washed.
Amazing. So you're in product development phase right now. Like, get dialing.
Yeah. Right now, it's tough for me to say we're in product development because I've built this equipment at such larger scale.
That's what you're saying.
We're actually going, usually people go from the opposite. They go from small to large. Right now, we've built it large, and I want to make it into smaller, portable, and modular units, right? So if you have a problem with a piece of equipment, oh, that's section 2. You pull out section 2 and you replace it with a brand new section 2. You button it up and it's off to the races, right? No welding needed, no expensive time down, quick turnaround time, so low maintenance costs. And the whole point of this is to make it as easy as possible for the world to get back to a better place.
So, like, you're thinking about the users of these things.
Oh,
like,
100%. You have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
Someone's got to steward this stuff, you know? I think about these gardens. I'm like, well, if I just, like, dropped off if you dropped off your technology and walked away, what good is that doing for anybody?
Yeah.
You know, we got to learn. We got to teach this new way.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Talk about your vision, man, because it's so deep. It's so amazing.
So, you know, growing up with a father like I had, right? And we used to call my dad God's janitor, right? Because growing up, that
like
was
Morgan
the goal.
Freeman in the Bruce
Except he actually was God and a janitor, right?
Yeah.
But we were basically growing up our entire life. I mean, my father's company is called Changing World Technologies. I mean, he wanted to change the world and make it a much better place. But this is 25 years ago, and the world was in a much different place environmentally than it is today, consciously, and everything in between, right? So he didn't have what we have today, where it's now we have the support of the people, right? People want to see what we're doing, and they're all for it. And that's, I think, where we're going to be a little bit more fortunate than what my father was able to do.
He was ahead of his time.
He was ahead of his time, and he still is.
Executive, way less conscious.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
We're ready for it. I feel it too.
So our goal, and actually this is a great time to tell you guys about a second company that my core team is putting together. And it's not a for-profit company. It's going to be our nonprofit, and we're calling it the Eden Initiative. And basically what we've intend on doing is some of the profits that are produced from Eden Energy, and we believe it's going to be a very valuable company one of these days, we're going to funnel that into the Eden Initiative. And we're writing into the bylaws that as partners and founders, we're not allowed to take a penny out of it. We're allowed to pay other people, but we're not going to pay ourselves for that. And
because a lot of nonprofits do stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll other people will obviously have to get paid, but the partners who started it, because we're all members in Eden Energy and we're all going to be yielding more than enough money if that does well. We've decided that we don't need anything from the Eden Initiative, and that should be used for only restoring ecosystems. I'm obviously a partner in Food Forest Abundance, so we want to put food forests in places. We want to shoot documentaries. So my younger sister, her name is Naomi, she came to see us in Turkey and saw a lot of the Syrian refugees and decided to become a journalist because of it. And right out of school, she shot a documentary called The Dark Side of Tulum, which is on YouTube. She's got like 1 million views on that.
Oh, your sister?
My sister, yeah.
Amazing.
But
Shout out.
she's an amazing talent, and I would love to bring her in at some point into the Eden Initiative to shoot documentaries highlighting the problems with the world and what we're solving.
Spreading awareness.
And obviously we want to use the money from there to purchase some of the systems and put them in places like when we think about ocean plastics, almost 95%, I think it's 88 to 99% of all ocean plastics come from just 10 rivers, 8 in Asia and 2 in Africa, right? And I forget all of them offhand.
That's what I heard, in Asia.
It's 8 in Asia. So,
why is that? They're just wasteful?
It's not that it's wasteful, it's the infrastructure, right? I mean, if you think about a country like India, there's not it was only about 15
in the cities. They're all in cities too.
It was only in 2015 that the president really made indoor plumbing pretty much mandatory. Before then, people used to literally just dump their fecal matter right in the streets, and it was really poor conditions. So
it's a different relationship.
It's a different world. And then we think of Bangladesh, which is by far the most population dense country in the world. And how do you do a landfill there? How do you process waste there, especially when most of the people can't even afford bread? Right? Bangladesh is considered one of the poorest countries in the world. So how do you stop a poor Bangladeshi guy from just throwing his plastic in the ground?
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He's
Dude,
just trying to
so
survive.
How do we? So we need to spread awareness. You're right.
Yeah.
Because if he knew, he might care a little bit. Like I was in Hawaii, just this little sidetrack.
Yeah.
And I was at a hostel, working at a hostel, and there's this beautiful little creek, and I saw a bunch of white paint go down one day. You know, someone
Awful.
just from up the way,
Yeah.
and the guy was like, "Oh man, you know."
Yeah.
You see that a lot here. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's awful, dude.
And-
this island's beautiful." You know.
And we treat
that's-
our waters terribly.
Dude, you're exactly
Terribly.
right. So that's part of your mission with Eden
Yeah.
Initiative.
So
like
we want to
we
want to use the money that we're creating from Eden Energy and bring it into an organization that sole purpose is to restore Eden, to bring Eden back to the world. And we're not saying that figuratively. That's why it's our name, right? We want to make sure that this is here, and the way that all came about was a hero's journey. So I guess it's time to tell that story, right?
Yeah, I want to know.
So I was about a year into working with Jim at Food Forest Abundance, and my wife, like we mentioned, was from Istanbul, and she went home to visit some family. And I had Odin here, which is our dog. You guys can't see him, but he's laying here. He's a good boy.
He's adorable.
Yeah, he's a good boy. But so Odin is obviously this powerful Norse mythological god, and we have a Bengal cat as well. He unfortunately is not staying with us right now. He can't do the apartment thing, so my parents are watching him. But his name is Atlas, but we pronunciate it the Turkish way, Atlas.
Another god.
The Titan who was tasked with holding the world on his shoulders. So
A Bengal cat.
a Bengal, yeah, he looks like a little jaguar. To the Mayans, the jaguar is the sacred animal, so he's my little protector, my little jaguar.
That's beautiful.
And so I'm at my house, and I'm talking to my sister, and my sister's into medicinals and the ceremonies and things like that, and she has been trying to get me to do an ayahuasca ceremony for a while, and it's something that I'm definitely considering. But she told me how to really do a medicinal journey with mushrooms, and she gave me an amazing playlist, and we were in a basement apartment, so I was able to turn off all the lights. I lit candles all around, and I took out my notebook and I wrote down my intentions on what I wanted to learn from this experience. I wrote down my mantra, and I took 7 grams to the face. and I sat, and going into the trip, I read a book about nonviolent communication leading in, just to try to improve myself and how I'm speaking and become a better person in that regard.
When you're communicating to yourself.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And to this day, the animals have never laid like this, but I was laying in my bed, and I had Atlas in this arm, and he was just laying there with his head right here, and Odin was laying right here with his head right here, and I had both my animals like that, and I closed my eyes, and I was listening to the music, and I had some of the most intense visions you could ever imagine. It was her and I in these long flowing white robes, and these guys were walking with us, and Atlas was on a leash and walking, and Odin was on a leash and walking, and there were these 300-foot tall trees, beams of golden light coming through, eagles soaring through the canopy, and I just kept hearing, "Restore Eden, restore Eden, restore Eden," and that's where this all came about. And it was at that moment where I just said, I have to do what's right for this world. I need to put my ego aside. I need to just be the man that the world needs me to be, so I can truly make a difference.
Beautiful, man. The hero's journey.
The hero's journey.
Restore Eden is what you heard.
Restore Eden.
That's beautiful,
Yeah,
man.
back then
What a
we had
vision.
no plans of
Yeah.
taking over this.
Seriously.
Yeah, the company hadn't even
Yeah.
been fathomed yet. We were still
We
heavily
had
invested.
different plans, and
Yeah.
we actually understood the meaning of it recently. Well, that's what it meant, because
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's
it
what
was-
happened.
it was
clicked.
2 years ago, no?
No, it was February 22. So a year and a half ago. More than a year and a half ago. Almost 2 years ago now, yeah.
No, 21.
No, 22, because we didn't start with Jim until in April of 21. It was a year after that.
Oh.
COVID years are kind of
Okay.
weird, aren't
Yeah.
they? It's
Oh, yeah.
It's a time warp. This is great. Yeah, voice crack. This is really great stuff. I appreciate you guys for coming. Man.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
So I guess we can get in a little bit more about what we can do, and and where we intend on going with it.
For sure.
So when we talk about the technology and really what it's capable of, it's hard to really express to somebody what it means that all carbon-based waste. So one of the things when I talk to people, I ask them, well, what's a waste that you would like to see processed? So let's play that game. What's a waste that you would envision us running? We've already spoken about plastics and tires, but name something else and I'll tell you a cool fact about it.
Sure. How about, you know, I can't think of
Put you on the
one.
spot.
How about like restaurant waste?
Yeah, well,
Restaurant waste.
restaurant waste, if we're talking like the cooking oil, that's easy. I mean, a lot of people make like
They do.
biodiesel feedstock from it. We just use it as a regular feedstock. It goes in and actually we just convert it. It's really a great feedstock because it's oil, it's fat, right? It converts almost to, I think you get nearly like 55% fuel oil out of used cooking oil, and probably about 25% gas. You get very little biochar because it's an oil, right? You don't make a lot of char because there's not a lot of solid material, but you mainly make oil and natural gas.
What's a better example? I can't think of waste.
Well-
I try not to waste.
How about humans? We can actually, after dying, I'm just thinking about it, like we can actually turn ourselves into energy, you know?
Humans.
Yeah, actually-
Animals.
There-
Yeah,
human.
animals.
Yep.
and-
Well, the plant one of the larger facilities that we built back in the day with my father's first company that I just got
That's
going.
a trip.
Conagra Foods was our partner, and everybody's heard of Butterball Turkey, right? We were across the street from the Butterball Turkey plant in Missouri, and we took all their blood, guts, bones, feathers, and that's what we use as our feedstock. And we used to make some of the most ridiculous fertilizers you can ever imagine out of that feed. Whoa. Farmers would have bidding wars over it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were fighting
man.
over who get to buy that.
Because they also want to get rid of those, no?
Yeah, well, at the time, Conagra Foods was paying, I think, like $30 or $40 a ton to get rid of it, and we worked out a deal where they were supposed to give us less, but they were still paying us to take it, and this is where some of the issues
Amazing.
come in because
The palm's the solution, dude.
Yeah.
They were paying you to take it.
they were paying us to take the waste,
and you were selling it.
Yep.
The fertilizer
Yeah.
on the other.
Yeah. Well,
so you're
the
selling
fuel, the
juices.
fuller fertilizer, all the products. So, and to top it off, the energy efficiency of this technology is third-party validated over 85%. So it makes 85% of its own energy. So you only put in a little to get out a lot. So it's I'm sure you have listeners right now who have backgrounds in engineering or whatever field of science it may be, physics, and they're listening and saying, "Oh, there's no way what this guy is saying is
Yeah.
real." But
Yeah.
I invite them to log on to our Instagram or my own. Our Instagram for the company is Eden Energy Solutions. My personal one is True Eco Warrior.
Right on.
so-
Go follow it right now. and hit him up, and you would love to tell him about it.
Yeah, and not only that, but we have
love
all
it.
sorts of videos of our products, of me operating the equipment on there. So I mean, we're not trying to hide this from the world. And
I love it, man. So wait, so if there's like farmers who want to use this, they could hit you up and say like, "Hey, we have all these waste, you know, from whatever process."
Yeah. So
Okay.
one farmer probably wouldn't produce enough waste to be able to utilize the equipment. I mean, our 1 ton per day system that we're planning on building, we're calling it the Eden Energy System Light M, and M is for mobile. It's going to be built into a 24-foot cargo trailer. But that'll be able to process 1 ton a day. You'll be able to pull it wherever you want it to go. But a group of farmers...
It'll be mobile.
Mobile. Yeah, this is going to be built into a trailer. So that was one of the things I really wanted. I wanted a system that could go places. It wasn't just stationary, right? Our bigger scale systems,
Cool.
you're going to be able to move them, but it's going to take a little bit of a process to move them, right? These are going to be in 40-foot containers, and there's going to be a few of them, right? To process 7 tons, because the big system is going to do about 5 to 7 tons a day, depending on the density of your feedstock, right? So those are going to be bigger. At the end of the day, you'll be able to move them, but it's more of a process where this one, the first version is going to be built in a trailer. We already have the system quoted. We just need the funding to build it. We're ready to go. All it is a more advanced version of our lab scale equipment. So I already know it's going to work. I just got to put the pieces together, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like a big Rector set, and I get to play.
Amazing. Dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'm even just curious for like my business, our business. We do
Sure.
like it would be like we do veggie kitchen gardens, right?
Yeah.
Market gardens
Yeah.
where we grow the we grow veggies and we sell, so carrot tops, tomato clippings, broccoli all the spent garden stuff that you just throw in the compost bin. We have a lot of it because we have 500 gardens.
But here's the thing about that stuff.
It turns to nothingness.
But that is that's your biomass. That's your feed for your food
exactly.
forest.
No,
you don't want to process that.
Wait, what do you mean?
That goes back into the garden.
That's exactly right. But I'm just trying to figure out a way to make it go quicker because it's building up at our location.
I mean, if you have excess, that's a different story. But at the end of the day, I mean, when we think back, and I'm sure your listeners at this point are familiar with permaculture, we want to chop and drop, right? We want to put that material God gave us, we want to put it back into the land so our crops and everything can grab those nutrients and become more abundant from it, right?
On site, do it on site.
We're
starting to do that more and more with clients because I thought we're bringing it back here. Can we set up compost at your location and then you build the soil on site? You're exactly right.
100%.
We need to use this. Most people put in trash bags. Most landscapers put in trash bags. It goes to these landfills, who knows what.
Well, and if that's the case, then we just take the trash bag, we throw the whole thing in, and we could process the bag and the biomass together, right? So so that's one of the things.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. In the machine.
Nope.
There's no discrimination.
No.
Really?
No. And when we do
we
showcases,
throw this microphone in there.
The microphone has a ton of metal components. I mean, if metal gets in, it's not the end of the world. We have part of the process is a evacuation that removes all the inorganics that made it through our screening process.
Cool.
So any rocks or silica or things like that, we're able to remove. Glass, exactly.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
because I'll see that in some of my, people throw a beer can in the mulch pile or something, and I'm like, man.
Yeah,
happens.
But that we want to put back in the land. We want to use waste, right? And it brings up a great example. There's a lot of biofuels out there, right? We're talking pyrolysis fuel, gasifier fuel. We're talking biodiesel, biofuels, whatever it may be. Ethanol. Ethanol is made from corn. Fresh corn. Not corn that's gone bad. It's corn that could have been grown for food crops.
Really?
Instead, we're taking corn and we're putting it in a gas tank and creating a poor quality, low BTU value fuel. So why are we doing that?
It's not even the spent corn. It's not like it's the actual corn.
It's corn. They're grown. There's fields and fields of corn in Iowa that just get cut, processed into ethanol. Subsidies, baby. Subsidies,
it's crazy what people don't know any of this stuff. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I thought it was like, just like the whatever the hell it's called. I don't even grow corn, but the husks, That's what I thought.
The cobs,
Yeah, I
cobs
can't even think right now.
And they do use that to a degree, but not always. Yeah. And you're taking food out of people's mouths.
So they're feeding. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, man. I misallocation of land, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Oh, 100%. And then you look at biodiesel, and I mean, this is getting off sidetrack here, but got biodiesel, you need a pure soybean or whatever kind of oil. And I mean, if we're talking seed oils, and that's a different story, right? We're all becoming aware that you should not be consuming those, right? Those polyunsaturated fats aren't what we thought they were. But you need this pure $3.50 per gallon fuel, and you create a $1.50 fuel that is methyl esterified and destroys engines. So you create this crappy fuel. Yet in the late 2000s, everybody was like, "Oh, my car runs on biodiesel," and I'm like, "Well, your car's running on a methyl esterified fuel that's wrecking havoc on your engine."
But they thought that was green.
Yeah, they thought it was green. But at the end of the day, you're taking food again out of people's mouths. So unless you're using a recycled feedstock, like a lot of people are getting better at with biodiesel, using used cooking oil, right? Some oils that have already been spent, then it's a different story. But a lot of these big guys, they're just using pure oil that's fresh, food grade oil, and making it into a bad quality fuel. So my whole thing is I don't want to use a valuable resource to create energy when there's so many parts out there that are just trash that we can use.
You want to focus on the waste.
I want the waste. And
because that's what we got to fix.
Oh, 100%.
We don't need to grow more soybeans or whatever. You're exactly right. Tear down more rainforest. It's so true.
And why are we destroying our most diverse ecosystems when we should be just replanting them? We should be going into these forests and putting in sub-canopy trees and vines and all of our shrubs and rebuilding the mycelium network. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Paul Stamets and looking at his work, and when he talks about the benefits of these old growth forests, how important they are to health and medicine. And we sit there and we go in and we clear cut it to put these pesticide-riddled farms. It's like
developments, dude.
Oh, destroying lands.
Dude, I know. Preach, you're preaching, man. I mean, we just met, guys. This is so great. Like, dude, you're speaking my language. I mean, yeah, just recently there's an old growth forest, probably 10 years ago. Now it's Alton. I don't know if you know.
I know Alton, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a city center now. It used to be like an old forest. And, you know, people were trying to make it not, make it not happen. And, like, say, hey, this should be protected. And, you know, someone probably got paid off or something. The same thing happened out in Westlake or whatever. I talked to the neighbors. I planted like 20 fruit trees for him like 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember he was like, we don't want them here. Abacoa, we don't want Abacoa here. Like, we like the animals. We like the, you know, nature, these old growth systems that takes hundreds of years to create these like beautiful land. Dude, if not more. And then they just get paid off and then it's decimated. You're right, bro.
Thousands of years to grow, a couple hours to destroy.
Dude, it's wild. And like the truth is, we can, with things like permaculture and agroforestry systems, we can quickly accelerate the forest, and we could do amazing things today.
Amazing things.
But we got to start doing them.
Yeah.
Let's do them. That's why I respect you, man.
Yeah.
You're
there's a lot.
You know, you're doing it.
Well, here's one of the really amazing things that we found out about this technology. And this was something that we never expected. But one of the most amazing things is in one of the processes, we oxidize metals. And for anybody who's a chemist and they just heard that, they're probably going, whoa, that's unreal. Because, so think of the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty came over to the U.S., it was bronze. But sitting in that air, it oxidized.
I remember reading that on the thing with my grandma.
Right.
Yeah.
Water oxidizes metals.
That's right. It's copper, right? I think.
Copper, not bronze. So what is
something like that?
So, I can't actually remember. But the fact that it turns green tells me it's copper.
It oxidized.
It oxidized. But what are some of the most harmful compounds in the world? Mercury, lead, sulfur, and think about the periodic table. Those are all metals.
Heavy metals. Wow.
Right? Sodium, we think of salt. Salt is a metal. We don't think of it that way because we have, I wouldn't say conditioned or trained, but most people don't understand science to that degree to understand that sodium is a metal, right?
Sure.
And when metals become oxidized, they become safer, right? So they become non-leachable. So we're actually able to take things like lead and mercury in the system and turn them into their oxidized forms. Now let's think about this. The world is a whole natural system, right? Mercury exists for a reason. There are benefits to it. When you oxidize mercury, mercury is actually one of those cool ones. We've actually seen, I have to get the mechanism studied. It's one of the things that I'm going to be looking at a university for to try to help me, but I want to understand the mechanism because mercury, when it goes through this process, becomes cinnabar. And cinnabar is a mercury substrate, but it's been shown to have benefits for plant growth.
Amazing.
So we take a problem and we turn it into a solution. So coal, mercury, we can make safe. Wow. So let's say you have coal. Coal is loaded with mercury, it's loaded with sulfur. And one of the problems is when you burn it, those compounds go into the air. And everybody's going to say, oh, also CO2, but I'm one of the people that doesn't really believe CO2 is as big of an issue as they're claiming it is.
We should do that after the heavy metals. We should go into that because we were talking about that. It's going to be good.
But we could actually take coal and process it through our system. Not even our whole stage, not even making the fuels out of coal. Just take coal as is, run it through some of the steps in our process, not all of them, like I said, and actually remove the sulfur, remove the mercury, and you're left with clean coal. And everybody's been saying clean coal for decades, clean coal this, clean coal that. No. This is real clean coal where all those heavy metals and compounds have been stripped out. Because again, as I mentioned,
it's not a marketing ploy. It's
the water gets into the interstices, it oxidizes. And when you oxidize a metal, it becomes water soluble. So it goes into the water phase. And then we physically separate the water from the coal.
This is some scientific stuff. Wow. So when it becomes water soluble, and then it oxidizes.
It ends up in the water.
So when something like, wow, so if you make a soil or something like a product from that waste and you add it to the soil, it's not going to, and the plants uptake that, it's not going to get in our system.
It's all part of the natural world.
It just turns
Mercury is natural. If it weren't for
elements.
the concentrated forms that we're seeing it in, would it really be that harmful?
Got it.
Right? We take everything and we concentrate things to the nth degree, and we see them in forms that would never exist in nature. And I've heard you say too much of a good thing isn't good, right? Yeah. I heard it on one of the shows. I can't remember if it was Matt or Cameron's or Sean's. But yeah.
Yeah, man. That's really cool what you were talking about with the metals. That is interesting to me.
Oh, it's one of the most important factors, and it's just a little side effect of what we do, but it's such a game changer. It's such a game changer because, I mean, and one of the people that we think are going to be, people tell me all the time, oh, big oil is going to come after you. I say, no, they're not, because big oil is going to be buying my equipment because all their waste that is so toxic, like when they have those huge tanks, so you're driving through, let's say, a port, and you see those huge tanks of oil, right?
Yeah.
After those sit for a while, you get this really heavy sludge at the bottom called tank bottoms. It is nasty.
I'm sure.
It's loaded with some of the worst compounds you can ever imagine. But now, let's say BP, after they destroyed the Gulf, right? They could take all of their tank bottoms, process it through the system, create clean burning regenerative fuels from it, and get rid of their waste while making energy from it. Creating clean energy from their waste oils that typically destroy everything.
They'll want to get in on it.
They're going to want it. And speaking of BP,
I love that, dude. Wait, dude, you got to adopt better systems.
You could have siphoned off all that oil and water that is from an oil spill, all that sludge that they can't use because it's loaded with water. You just take all that water and oil and you pump it through the machine, and it'll separate everything. The water will become clean, come out clean again, and the oil will just become clean energy again. So like an oil spill or that incidents that happened in East Palestine, we could have taken all that soil, just dug it up, scooped it in, put it in a container, processed it through our machine, no problem. Done. No problem.
Very cool, man.
We could have solved East Palestine in the blink of an eye if we had our equipment built.
Wow. All right. Super interesting stuff, guys. Like, how are we going to tell people about this? Tell the world about it.
Well, Gozde, thankfully, it's when we look at the team that we've assembled, and one of our partners is he used to be a youth pastor, and now he's heavily involved in the church, runs the Sunday school. But he's put it more simply than anybody on the team. This team was assembled because of divine intervention. When you look at all the people that we currently have, everybody fills their niche, and if you look at their resume, you would think that we made up their resume for their role. And the fact that my life partner, my spouse, my best friend is one of the most amazing marketers I've ever met, and that was one of the roles that we needed, it really made sense. So she's going to be in charge of that, so I'll let her tell her side of the story.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm not a scientist. And as I told you guys, when I found out about it, I so did not care. I'm like, wow, that's okay. But when I actually see it, what it actually does, years after, I was blown. So I want to be the translator. I want to translate John into the people, like a language where people on the street can understand, because he can
marketing.
talk. Can tell, yes, and he can tell a lot of things, and it doesn't mean anything most of the times, even to me, and I have to dig into it, and I'm like, it doesn't mean anything to someone on the street. Someone on the street.
I'm listening deeply because there's so much to it.
Yeah.
We need people to understand. We're not going to teach people chemistry, but we're going to tell people it's a life skill. It's a life lesson, because when I got involved with this and a previous company that we worked with, and I noticed that we don't know nature. I don't know the earth. I don't know the trees. I don't know anything that I'm living on and living together with, coexisting together. And what we are doing, basically, nature has its own way, and we're just breaking it. And then we're trying to fix what we break by breaking it even more. So that's what I understood. And I want people to understand that those solutions are not the solutions. And I want people to understand that what we are doing is actually solve two main problems of the earth, cleaning it up and also providing and like producing energy. So two problems. One of them is we need to clean it up and we need to produce energy. Right. So I want people to understand that we're the missing piece of the world and we're here. So we're not going to sell. We're not going to sell the machines. We're not going to sell the technology. We're just going to sell people hope.
When she says that, she means our marketing team. She doesn't
our
mean that
marketing team. Like, when I'm telling this story.
I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to share
the
it?
story?
No, we're going to. But
we're not going to aim to sell via
like
our
in
marketing.
Our social
we're
media,
let this machine sell themselves.
In our social media, and when we're talking about this, we're just going to sell people hope. We're not going to push them to buy this or like in regular marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
We're just going to create awareness and movements. And a lot of people are not going to maybe buy what we are selling, but they're going to be our supporters. They're going to be our fans. They're going to spread the word and they're going to maybe do something different in their daily lives. And that's going to be good for the world. So
advocate for us.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
that's what we need.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Like companies like the Ocean Cleanup, right? They're an organization looking to clean up the world. People don't buy anything from them, but they follow them on social media. They support them. They donate, right? And that's why we're setting up this 501c, or we don't know if it's going to be a 501c3, the nonprofit.
Yeah.
So people can actually give and know that that money is making a difference.
Towards the dream.
Towards the dream.
Towards Eden.
Towards the vision,
That's it, right? So you're helping synthesize it for people.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah, amazing. Like, cause we need that. Like, I man, I wish that was my situation. Every role in my company, the resume was built for that role. That's beautiful, bro. Yeah. Like, and but anyways, I think about it all the time. We have this beautiful, like Food Forest Abundance, for example, this amazing product. Hey, these other landscapers are, right? It makes you go insane. Like, why are we still feeding our grass every 6 weeks? Like, but it's like, hey, Food Forest Abundance. Hey, Urban Abundance. We got gardens, like crazy salad every night for your family. Like,
and then you posted the cranberry hibiscus. Oh my gosh! I mean, it's like crack. I could just sit there and eat the whole plant.
And it's so abundant, right?
Oh my gosh! It grows like a weed.
I know.
And what is a weed, right?
Exactly. So it's like exactly, right? But it's like, how do we get people to know about it? Awareness, right? Like, that's right. Like, we have all these amazing plants, cranberry hibiscus. How do we get this to the world? And that's what we're doing right now. But like, I applaud you and for making it happen, you know.
And I mean, she's phenomenal at what she does, and we've only started kind of posting. Like, people are going to go on and they're going to see my page, and they'll see that I posted about a ton of other things, but I was just really trying to get the account established, because now moving forward, it's going to be primarily focused on just all about the technology. She's just starting to build up her branding to start making a name for ourselves, and we're really going to be launching it. And January 1st is when we're really going to start posting and telling people about what we're doing. Cool. Because we do, right? I mean, there was a great book I read called Start With Why, right? And it basically tells you about all these huge brands out there that establish themselves, right? Apple doesn't sell the iPhone. Apple sells a lifestyle, right? They sell that lifestyle. Southwest Airlines, they didn't sell flights. They sold freedom to travel, right? Mm-hmm. And these great companies,
100%,
they had their niche, and our equipment. Hey, buddy, we're in the middle of an interview. You gotta be quiet.
Oh, I didn't say hello.
Soon.
But super soon.
Yeah, he's been sitting here for about 2 hours like a champ, quiet. So I gotta give him some loving for that. But
he's doing great.
Yeah, so when we think about that, and most people off the street aren't going to buy our equipment. Let's just face it; they're expensive. It's mainly B2C, right? We're mainly selling, or B2B, right? We're mainly selling to businesses, right?
Yeah.
Because businesses are going to be the ones producing enough waste. But those are the big waste producers, right? We talk about Apple claiming they're carbon neutral, when in reality they produce more waste plastic than anybody on the planet, really, outside of Coca-Cola.
Is that right?
Coca-Cola is the biggest waste plastic producer.
Is that right?
By far, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but
it's in Georgia. It's right there. It's right.
well,
right?
You drive down I-10, and I've driven to Austin a few times, and I think you pass like two or three. Maybe it's not Coke. Maybe that's Budweiser. I can't remember if it's Budweiser or Coke, but you pass a couple of bottle whatever they call them.
Yeah. Bottling plants.
Bottling plants.
Right,
there you go.
Right. We're getting it.
But yeah, I mean, there's all these things going on, and
Dude,
we need to inspire people through hope, because you look at what's being said in the media and all these places, like that woman AOC saying we have 12 years before the world ends. And if you look
what kind of message is that to a 12-year-old?
It's
hey, you're not gonna have a life.
I
refuse
understand.
to have that belief system. Yeah,
I don't understand it, and why we would even tell anybody that, even if it were, well, if it were true, you would want to tell them, right? You wouldn't want people to be prepared. But if you look at the data, where that comes from, right? And most of this claims come from the IPCC report, right? The Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because I've had different people on talking about it. And yeah, go on.
So it's so interesting when you actually read the report, and I'm one of those people that's read a substantial amount of it, trying to really understand what they're claiming is going to happen. And you look at all these claims that you see in the media. Oh, if we don't stop burning all fossil fuels today, sea levels are going to rise 1.5 feet in the next 100 years, and we're not going to be able to stop it. But if you read the fine print in that part of the report, that statement does not account for human development and human engineering to be able to counteract those issues. So you're telling me that over the course of 100 years, and I'm a Long Island boy. I grew up 7 miles from John F. Kennedy Airport, so 5 miles from the border of New York City, right? You're telling me that over the course of 100 years, you wouldn't be able to build a levee or build some kind of a barrier around New York City to stop it from 18 inches of water? Or even if it's the worst at 36 inches, you're going to tell me that we couldn't stop 36 inches of water? All right, well, let's figure it out. Let's build an 8-foot wall all around the city. There you go. So now you have the wall, you build it up, and now the city can't get flooded, right? So
humans have done some pretty incredible things. People, we sell ourselves short, man. Yeah. Look at these feats I've heard one time, and I love that you're talking about this, because we want to sound the red alarms and just say, oh, it's done. It's not true, man.
It's not true.
Not true. And it's also not a good place to be when you're like, there's not a way out. Yeah. Like, I love how you're saying we're selling hope. I hope I'm doing that as well. Hope, man. Yeah. Hope for a better life. Like,
yeah, and then I hear people saying, and obviously I'm not an advocate for fossil fuels, because I believe burning them causes issues, but I don't believe it's the CO2. I believe it's all those compounds that we've spoken about in the show, the mercury, the sulfur, that get into our systems in concentrated forms and wreak havoc, right? But we look at CO2. CO2 is the foundation of every single food chain and food pyramid on the world, because it's what feeds the base. It's what feeds the plants.
That's right.
Plants are the base of every food system, and CO2 is plant fertilizer.
It's magic.
And this is something that some of your listeners can look at if they haven't heard it, but we're at the greenest period in recorded history right now.
Really?
Because of how high our CO2 levels are. The world is at its greenest moment in world history because of how high our CO2 levels are. Directly related.
Yeah. So why is everyone like saying it's the worst thing ever? Like,
because these IPCC reports, they lay out worst case scenarios that don't account for anything. But
they're trying to fearmonger, basically. And why though?
Do
you think about that at all?
I think I know I've heard some of the guests in your show, and I think this is a safe space to say this. I think it's all about control. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to these large governmental organizations that gained all this power during, whether it's after 9/11 with the Patriot Act and all these different components. And once someone has power, it's very, very difficult to give that up, right? They just want more and more and more. And that's what I think this is really coming down to.
Man.
Because
they don't want us to use energy.
Well, let's look at CO2 emissions from this angle, right?
Yep.
So right now we're at 420 parts per million. If we go back several million years, it was exponentially higher than that. I'm talking 2,000 or 3,000 parts per million. Greenhouses are pumped with CO2 to make them grow bigger, and usually those greenhouses are about 1,000 parts per million. The ISS, if that actually is really up there, they claim that's at 5,000 parts per million. So if we're putting all these CO2 levels at such high levels, how could it be that bad? But then we go out and everybody's saying we need to cut all the emissions. Well, I've seen reports that claim 89% of annual CO2 emissions are naturally caused. So human beings are only accounting for 11% of emissions. So if we cut, and I'm not those
like volcanoes and stuff, right?
And I need to make sure that I validate those. Those are things that I've heard from various sources, and I need to really hammer those down and make sure they're accurate. But if that's accurate, and we cut every single emission in the world, and I'm talking all emissions, not just fossil fuels. I'm talking wood. I'm talking in Africa where they're burning dung for fuel. You cut every single emission in the world, just dropped it to a halt. 89% of emissions would still exist. So what are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are we crippling all of our systems? Why do we have these children who are throwing themselves into traffic screaming, just stop oil? I mean, yeah, I get it. You guys are upset because you've been told these fabrications and lies, and big oil has definitely done their damage. I'm not sitting here advocating and supporting big oil.
Thank you.
They've done plenty of harm.
But it's a narrative we've been given.
We've been spooned.
It's like
it's a lie.
It's a conditioning. Yeah, it's a lie.
So
it's a lie.
Obviously, we need to put big oil and clean them up, and they need to do better things. And they've destroyed countless ecosystems. We don't have to get into that. But the world needs fossil fuels right now.
And they need good people using fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Good people using energy.
Because
more energy.
It's the cheapest, most reliable energy. And the key word there is reliable.
Fossil fuels, you're saying?
Because
they don't want people to use that.
The energy is stored. It's there. Yeah. Right? I like wind. I like solar. I think they have their purposes. Do I think commercial application? No, I don't think either one of those is good for commercial. But personal use, homesteading, amazing. Yeah, they should be used in personal use and homesteading. But when you're trying to power a city and you cut down a forest for a solar farm, I'm like, wait, that's green?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it just...
There's a big contract, you know.
Yeah,
that's what
I think almost every house should have solar panels on them. I think people should, if they have the area and they have wind, have a little turbine, right? And there's great small turbines now that aren't the big spinning blades that wreak havoc on the wildlife, but they're like tulip turbines, and they kind of just spin and they oscillate, and they won't harm the wildlife. So there's great advancements in that. Wow. But then again, we have to use batteries.
Right. And
batteries, people don't know the dark side. There's a great...
Let's talk about... Wait, before we talk batteries, I'm curious, the fossil fuels, like what would you say to someone like, well, we're going to run out of fossil fuels one day?
Oh, I would greatly argue that.
Yeah,
every other week they're finding new wells and reserves, and then not only that...
There's more than we know out here in this realm.
But the wells are replenishing themselves. Like they say these wells run dry, and then they come back 10 years later and the well replenished itself. Oh, wait, are these dinosaurs?
Are you serious?
Or is so my father has this theory.
You're on one, dude. We're getting to it here.
There's a great book called The Deep Hot Biosphere where he basically explains that oil is basically emanating from the core, and it's actually not made from fossils. It's actually a natural byproduct of the heat, pressure, and time and the conversion. It's a great, it's an interesting book.
We're gonna get some people haters. I want to know what's that book?
The Deep Hot Biosphere. I forget the author's name, but it's called The Deep Hot Biosphere.
Deep Hot Biosphere.
Yeah.
That's interesting, dude. It replenishes itself.
These wells are replenishing themselves, and I'm telling you, you're gonna have people saying, "Oh, that's a lie," and I'm gonna say, "Okay, well, you can go and you can find out for yourself," because
it's hard to be.
We've worked with the oil companies.
It's hard, dude, to let go. But I appreciate this. So talk about batteries, bro.
So another great book that I read was called Cobalt Red by Siddharth, and I'm gonna butcher his name, Siddharth Khan. For some. The name of the book, I'm always good. It's the author that I always have trouble with. But it is basically this journalist who went into the Congo, the DRC, and he went in and he was able to get into all these exclusive places because of connections. And he showed that the majority of this cobalt that we're using in our batteries as one of the substrates to power the battery and get the electrodes and cathodes done correctly is coming from child and slave labor. I mean, it might not be
in Africa.
In Africa. I mean, it was actually one of the most difficult books I've ever read, and I made myself finish it, but by the end of that book, I felt sick looking at my phone because I know there's cobalt in it. And that's one of the reasons why, personally, I won't drive an electric vehicle for my own reasons. Like, I won't have one because until we develop a battery that is based off of a different compound, because, I mean, I think you have something like 8,000 or not 8,000 pounds, but how heavy are the batteries in the Teslas? I can't remember exactly.
They're heavy. They're like the whole base of the thing.
It's a joke how heavy they are, but you got to think about how much cobalt is in there and how much.
You make me feel awful right now. Jeez, I have a Tesla. What?
But these little kids,
I know, dude.
and
Literally,
they're
one of my
dying,
clients.
they're getting trapped. I
You're
mean, it's
right,
horrible,
dude. You're right, and we got to put our money toward. Dude, thank you for mentioning this because it's important. It exists right now. Yeah. And like we're talking about, oh, Tesla's all green. Like it's all marketing, dude. All these things, you know.
Yeah.
Because you see it. You guys are in that world. Yeah. It's like what you're talking about. 95% of recycling's BS. Like, it's all marketing. But my point is like, and anyways, we could do this all day, guys. My one of my clients.
Well, let me
like,
actually reference something on the electric vehicle. So, electric vehicles right now, to me, are in their infancy, right? They're amazing technological marvels.
Cool.
They're sweet cars, right? Once we start figuring out different ways of having these batteries without lithium, without cobalt, making them from recycled materials, I mean, there's great advancements coming out in graphene-based batteries, which is a carbon-based battery, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out. But the main issue with electric vehicles right now is you have these people that are plugging in their electric vehicle thinking there's no emissions associated with that electricity. But over 85% of the U.S. infrastructure still comes from fossil fuels. Right. So all you're doing is you're plugging your car in here, burning the gas over there, and charging a battery here. Mm-hmm. So you're burning the gas over there instead of in the car. Yeah. So you're not offsetting
unless you have
emissions.
a solar at your house, which you could.
Unless you're charging your own car at your home, but if you're
I do it right into my 220, you know. Yeah.
But you go to these superchargers. I mean, I've seen the funny memes and videos. There's like one of these emergency superchargers on the side of the road, and it's being powered by diesel generators.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, come on.
I know it's crazy. But it's so it's everywhere. Yeah. It's ubiquitous. It's interesting. But yeah, man, the batteries, people don't know. I appreciate. One of my clients was sending me pictures of the kids in Africa and like giving me shit. He was like, you know, give me a hard time. Like he's playing, but it's real. Like he wants me to know that Tesla. He's from South Africa. You know, he's like, this is what's going on.
Well, it's not just Tesla. There's a lot of car companies out there, and Musk is doing. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, when you break down everything he's doing, there's some things he's doing that I disagree with, but the majority of what he's doing, to me, it looks like he's doing it for the good of humanity. Like,
I like to think so too, man. Yeah, everyone loves him too, but
like even the Neuralink,
he's a revolutionary.
Yeah, like people get down on Neuralink, and they're saying, oh, he's going to be able to control brains, but at the end of the day, the reason why he's developing it essentially is to help paralyzed people and people with physical disabilities be able to bypass that default in their brain and give them the ability to walk again, right? So it's always a double-edged sword, right? Yeah, there's really massive benefits to it, but it doesn't mean you have to put one in your head. But the guy who got into a car accident, and I have a friend who I've been communicating with who's having some really bad issues with his back, and he's not a guy that would ever put this in his brain. I mean, he's very awake and wouldn't want something like this in his body. But somebody like him who's gotten into a really bad car accident, who's hurt his back, this Neuralink chip might be able to alleviate their pain, or if they're paralyzed, help them walk again. And anybody who's paralyzed, I mean, I played rugby, so I've had some injuries that have sidelined me where I couldn't walk for a few weeks, and I was just miserable. I couldn't imagine somebody who was permanently like this, right? And how much your desire would be to want to get back on your feet again, literally. Yeah. Right?
It's amazing.
So, I mean,
they can just change something in the brain, boom, fires it up.
And I mean, like, you look at the Boring Company, he's creating this amazing tunneling technologies and all these amazing tech. So at the end of the day, I mean, I've seen a ton of hate go his way when I think he's trying to do what's right for humanity. But time will tell. I think
right.
I think we're learning a lot about who he is, especially the other day when he told people to F off because they weren't going to advertise on X, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's pretty cool. I mean, and I hope one day that with the technologies that me and my team are going to bring to the world, that maybe I'll be close to his level. It'd be kind of cool to be known as a revolutionary scientist who made major change. But I just want to do good for humanity.
I love it, man.
I want to heal this planet, and I want to be one of the people that brings Eden back. That's my life mission. That's my life work, and that's why I wake up every day at 4:45, and I'm ready to go every morning, and I don't quit.
Yeah, let's get it, brother. I'm here for it. Let's build Eden, baby. Yeah. So, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for giving me the platform to tell people about what we're doing, a little bit about my story. We didn't get into a lot of it. Actually, we didn't even get into the part about how I joined the company. And I started at 16, and I was the company landscaper. I mean, my dad wouldn't even give me we had a facility in Philadelphia, and I go down there. He ships me down there on the train. One of the employees picks me up, brings me to the site, and I call him, okay, so what experiments am I going to be doing? Okay, you're going to go into the shed. There's a weed whacker and a lawnmower. Go take care of business.
Amazing.
And I knew how to do all that, obviously. I'd been doing it my whole life.
How old were you, 15?
16 was when I first went down, and then I spent my summers down there from 17 on, and I would learn the lab, and I became a plant tech, and I used to run the reactors, and I was the for lack of a better term, the company bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how it was.
That's how you start, yeah.
Oh, even
and
my
then...
whole career, my father never paid me because he said, we're paying your phone, you're living in my house, we pay your car insurance. So he never paid me well, but they took care of me, and they paid my bills and whatever it may be. But it taught me that from the bottom of the ladder, you have to climb up. He didn't give me this cushy position.
You weren't the executive right off.
I was the bitch.
I love that. My guy.
Oh,
wow, you reminded me of a good friend when you just did that.
Yeah, no, I was
Living
the
it, dude.
and I don't like saying bad words, but I was the company bitch for years. For years.
From B level to C level.
I love it. You got to earn your stripes, man.
Yeah.
You got to live it. Yeah.
And it's what I think made me the man I am today, and I'm forever grateful for the gifts my parents have given me, both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I mean, they're two of the most amazing people I've ever met. They've been married like 44 years or something like that at this point. Hey, buddy. And it's just I got very lucky in my life, and that's why I say I think I'm the most blessed scientist on the planet.
Amazing, man. Beautiful. Eden Energy, guys. What is it? I'll let you say.
Yeah. So we're Eden Energy Solutions. That's where you can find us on Instagram at Eden Energy Solutions. And my outward facing Instagram is True Eco Warrior. So TRUEECO Warrior.
Love it.
And we're just gonna go out, and we're gonna try to make real change and bring harmony and peace and love back, and teach people that, look, here we're gonna be this big corporation, but again, my team, there's not a greedy bone in a single person's body. We have all people who just want to do what's best for humanity, all God-fearing, loving people who are just so good, so kind-hearted. I mean, I get emotional talking about my team because that's the kind of people they are. I mean, we are so blessed to be able to bring this group together, to bring this gift to humanity and share it with the world. It's truly special, and it's an honor. And we're going out, and we're going to raise the seed capital. And if anybody out there is interested in potentially being a part of this or investing or connecting, I mean, they can reach out to us as well. They can either fill out the form on our website or reach out to info@edenenergy.co, and we're happy to hear what anybody else wants to do. But we're doing a little seed raise right now to build that first system, just a few $1,000,000, and then we're going to take it from there, and the sky is the limit.
Sky's the limit, baby.
The sky's the limit.
Much love and respect. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. We'll see you next time, guys. Peace.
We're in the garden. It's existential.